Boston, Massachusetts. Winter grips the city. It's January 17th, 1950, just after 7 p.m. At a quiet warehouse on Prince Street, one of the most brazen and legendary robberies in American history is about to unfold. 11 men, masked and gloved, move like shadows through the narrow alleys of Boston's North End. They're armed but silent. This is no last-minute job. They've been planning this for over 2 years. Inside the Brink's armored car depot, employees are wrapping up their day. The vault has already been sealed. What's left are stacks of cash. Over $1.2 million in bills, and another $1.5 million in checks, coins, and money orders. Unsecured, unwatched, and totally vulnerable. Then chaos. The gang bursts into a side door they had secretly unlocked earlier. They wear Navy-style peacoats, chauffeur caps, Halloween masks, and rubber gloves. One of them shouts, "This is a stick-up. No one move or you'll get it." Within minutes, they've tied up the employees with tape and forced them to lie face down. No one is harmed. Not yet, but the precision is chilling. They scoop up everything. Every bag of cash. Every roll of coin. Every slip of paper with value. In less than 20 minutes, they vanish into the cold Boston night, leaving behind silence, fear, and no real trace. "It was the perfect job," one FBI agent later said. "Too perfect. The alarm isn't raised until several minutes after the gang has already disappeared. And when it is, the scale of what just happened becomes immediately clear. Over $2.7 million gone. That's nearly $33 million in today's money. This one was different," recalled a Boston detective. "It wasn't messy. It wasn't random. These guys knew exactly what they were doing." The city goes into full panic. Boston's newspapers scream the crime of the century. And the FBI is brought in the next morning. Agent George Murphy from the Boston field office walks through the crime scene, eyes narrowed. No fingerprints. No shell casings. No IDs. They were ghosts. It was clear this wasn't just a robbery. It was a declaration, a challenge. And the FBI had just been handed a case that would become one of the longest and most complex investigations in American criminal history. Within hours, the FBI and Boston police formed a joint task force. But what they found at the Brink's depot was nothing. No fingerprints. No shoe prints. No names. No suspects. "They didn't leave us a thread," said FBI agent Charles Winstead, one of the first on the scene. "It was like chasing shadows." The robbers had taken every possible precaution. The tape they used to bind the employees was clean. Even the inside of the vault room had been scrubbed. No prints, no cigarette butts, not even a stray fiber. The employees who were tied up couldn't identify anyone. The gang had worn rubber Halloween masks and gloves. One worker said he remembered a voice, calm, confident, that said, "Don't look at me. You don't want to remember this face." The only clue? A single black chauffeur's cap left behind. And even that led nowhere. For months, investigators followed every possible lead. Over 1,000 suspects were interviewed. Convicts, ex-Brink's employees, and known gang members were all questioned. But nothing stuck. "It became an obsession," said a Boston police sergeant. "Everyone in the city had a theory. Everyone had a suspect. But we had nothing solid." The public was stunned. The press mocked the authorities. How could 11 men rob the most secure cash facility in the country and vanish? Meanwhile, behind closed doors, FBI agents were slowly, quietly building a theory. "It had to be someone who knew the layout," said Agent Winstead. "This wasn't some street crew. This was military-grade planning." The gang had entered through a rarely used side door, one that had been tampered with weeks before. Security cameras? Non-existent. The robbers had waited until the vault was sealed, and the cash left unsecured in the counting room. They knew everything. This wasn't luck. This was knowledge. And timing, another agent said. Suspicions turned toward Tony Pino, a well-known Boston career criminal with a knack for organizing crews. He'd done time for burglary and was known for being meticulous, quiet, dangerous. Agents began tailing him, but he never slipped. He never bragged. And he never got his hands dirty. But his associates? A different story. The task force began building a list, 11 names, each connected to Pino, each with a history, each with motive. Still no proof, no confessions, no stolen cash recovered. It was a perfect crime, and it was starting to look like the perfect escape. Weeks turned into months. Months turned into years. And still, no arrests, no confessions, no money. By 1952, over 2 years had passed since the robbery. The FBI had spent thousands of man-hours chasing whispers, rumors, and cold leads. Public pressure was mounting. The media had stopped mocking the investigation and started ignoring it. But inside FBI headquarters in Boston, one thing hadn't changed. The belief that Tony Pino's crew was behind it all. They were ghosts, said Special Agent Leo Gautier. But even ghosts slip up eventually. That slip came in the form of Joseph Specs O'Keefe, a known associate of Pino's crew. In 1952, O'Keefe was arrested in Pennsylvania for an unrelated armed robbery. After serving some time, he was released on bail. But while he was out, something changed. He started sending letters. First to his former partners, then to outsiders. He was demanding help, money, loyalty. He got silence. While the rest of the Brink's crew stayed quiet and calculated, O'Keefe grew increasingly paranoid. He felt abandoned, disposable. The FBI had eyes on him again. He was unstable, Agent Gautier recalled. He was a wild card. We watched and waited. Then, in 1954, it happened. 2 men tried to kill him, shot multiple times in the street. O'Keefe barely survived, but that was the final straw. From his hospital bed, surrounded by agents, he finally broke. "I've got something to say," he said quietly, "and it's big." When Joseph Specs O'Keefe decided to talk, the FBI dropped everything. He didn't just give them a confession. He gave them the full playbook. Names, roles, who was in the building, who planned it, who waited in the getaway car, who gave the order to shoot him. "I was there," he said. "I tied the guards up. I grabbed the money, and I nearly got killed for it." Over the course of multiple interviews, O'Keefe laid it all out. The robbery had been orchestrated by Tony Pino, with logistical support from Vincent Costa and muscle from several others, including Adolph Jazz Maffei, Michael Geegan, and Stanley Gusciora. They had cased the Brink's building for over 2 years. Sometimes they'd break in after hours just to measure lock placements and practice drills. They even made duplicate keys. It was military precision. We knew when the cash room was full. We knew when the vault was sealed. We even knew how long the guards took for smoke breaks. O'Keefe revealed. With this new intel, the FBI and Boston PD didn't waste a second. Arrests began within days. Some suspects were stunned. Others, not so much. "We always knew they'd come," one of them reportedly said. Searches of the suspects' homes turned up some weapons and materials, but still no cash. Almost $2.7 million had vanished into thin air, but that didn't matter anymore. With O'Keefe's testimony and corroborating details, the case was finally ready to go to court. The Justice Department approved indictments. "We had waited nearly 6 years," said Agent Gautier. "Now we had our shot, and we weren't going to miss." The press exploded. Brink's gang busted. FBI breaks biggest robbery in history. The perfect crime had finally cracked. But one question still haunted everyone. Where was the money? The courtroom in Boston was packed. Press, law enforcement, families, locals. Everyone wanted to witness the downfall of the so-called Ghost Gang. In 1956, just days before the 6-year statute of limitation for robbery was set to expire, the federal government formally charged 11 men in connection with the Brink's robbery. Among them, Tony Pino, the alleged mastermind. Joseph Specs O'Keefe, now the key witness. Adolph Jazz Maffei, Michael Geegan, Vincent Costa, and others who had helped plan, enter, and escape that January night in 1950. Each defendant pleaded not guilty. Inside the courtroom, the tension was electric. The prosecution had one shot to make the case, and it relied almost entirely on O'Keefe's word. "If he slips, we lose everything," said an FBI prosecutor. "We had no recovered money, no physical evidence, just one man's voice." O'Keefe took the stand. Calm, cold, confident. He described the planning in painful detail, the practice runs, the disguises, the role of each man, the betrayal, the shooting, and then came a bombshell. He named names, in front of the jury, in front of his former crew. Reactions from the defendants were tense but silent. Some stared at the floor. Others glared at O'Keefe with pure venom. One of them whispered, "You're dead." But it was too late. The wall of silence that had protected the Brink's gang for 6 years had shattered. O'Keefe was placed under heavy protection. Multiple threats had already been made on his life. Back in court, defense attorneys tried to poke holes in his story, calling him a liar, a traitor, a criminal. But the jury didn't buy it. The FBI backed his claims with small but significant evidence. Surveillance logs, jail letters, fragments of planning documents, and time card inconsistencies from the night of the robbery. The picture became clear. These men had pulled off the most ambitious robbery in American history. Verdict, guilty. The courtroom was silent for a moment, then erupted. Reporters rushed for headlines. Agents exhaled. And the city of Boston felt like justice had finally arrived. But one mystery still remained. Where was the money? With the convictions handed down, the Brink's case was officially closed. 8 of the 11 men were sentenced to life in prison. The others received heavy federal time for related charges. The FBI had done it. Cracked the crime of the century just in time. But not a single dollar from the $2.7 million haul was ever found. "It's the only thing that still haunts me," said Special Agent Leo Gautier years later. "We got the men. We told the story. But the money that disappeared. Rumors swirled for decades that it was buried in New Hampshire, that it was laundered through bars in Boston, that some of the gang's families lived off it quietly, under the radar." O'Keefe hinted at its location once, cryptically, then never again. Some believe he left it behind as revenge, a final punishment for the men who turned on him. Tony Pino died in prison. So did several others. The few who were released late in life never spoke of the money. Not once. The Brink's robbery became more than a heist. It became American folklore. Books were written. Movies were made. It inspired dozens of copycats over the years. But none ever matched the scale, planning, or mystery of that cold January night in 1950. It was the perfect crime, said one FBI veteran, right up until it wasn't. And what made it legendary wasn't just the money or the silence or the masks. It was the one rule that broke them all. You can't trust anyone. Not in the streets. Not in your crew. And definitely not after 6 years of pressure from the FBI.